right, ladies and gentlemen, we talked today in my fourth period class about my need to speed up the videos a little bit, make them shorter, so I am going to try and do that and get right to the point here. Today is December 4th, 2013, and you should be on page 76 in your notebook. Please put the heading Simple Interest. So our objective for the day is that we can solve problems involving simple interest. But what is simple interest? Interest is this really nifty thing that happens with banks, especially when you have a savings account, retirement accounts, and some checking accounts let you do it. Not a lot, but some checking accounts allow your money to gain interest while it's held in the bank. What this means is that pretty much if you keep money in the bank, you're going to get paid some money from the bank based on how much you have in your account. So if you have $2,000 in your account, you'll get a certain amount of money back from the bank for keeping your money there at the bank. It's a nice little perk of having a bank account. So when we are finding the interest, finding out how much the bank pays us, we use this formula. I equals PRT. This can go on the same page in your notebook. And we have to talk about what each part of the formula means. I is the interest that you earn on your money. So it's how much money the bank actually pays you. P is the principal. It's kind of like the original amount. It's whatever you deposit into your bank. So you deposit 2,000, or you deposit 10, or you deposit 100, and you put that into the bank. That's what's used to calculate your interest. The rate is always written as a percent, and maybe it'll be an 8% interest rate. So for every year you get 8% of the money that you deposit goes back into your account as your interest. Okay? And the last thing is time. That's the amount of time that you plan on keeping your money in the bank. So after a year or 2 years or 10 years, one important thing to know is that time in this formula must always be measured in years. If they give you something like 6 months in a problem, you have to record that as 1/2 of a year, or 0.5. Because you can't put in 6 because the formula assumes that it is in years and not in months. All right, so let's get that all written down. And on the next page in your notebook, page 77, once again, it's December 4th, let's work through a couple example problems. Don't worry about writing the example problem down. I'll give you a copy of that tomorrow, but do make sure you leave some room to tape it in. Our first example, you put $1,000 into an investment, some kind of account, that's what an investment is, yielding 6% annual interest. You left the money in for 2 years, and the problem wants to know how much interest do you get at the end of those 2 years. If we look at our formula, I equals PRT, let me write that down, I equals PRT. Keep in mind that all of these are multiplying with each other because mathematicians are lazy, they don't want to write the multiplication symbol. So then we just have to plug in the numbers from our problem. So the interest, does the problem tell us the interest? No, the problem asks us how much interest you get at the end of those 2 years. So I is what we don't know. It's going to stay as I. P is the principal, the amount of money that we put into the account, and that's going to be this $1,000 here. You put $1,000 into an investment. So I'll write that here. R is my rate. The rate is the percent. You always need to change the percent in this kind of problem to a decimal, always. So 6%, to change it to the decimal, you take where the decimal point would be normally, right after 6, and you move it to the left 2. So now instead of 6%, we have 0.06, which is the decimal equivalent of 6%. So I'm going to put that into my equation, 1,000, which is my principal, times 0.06, which is my rate here, times the time. And our time, the amount of time in years that our money was in the account, is 2. So I'll do times 2. So if I put this into my calculator, first of all, I have to notice, I have nothing but numbers on one side of the equal sign and a variable on the other side. Sometimes people get a little confused here and say, well, don't I have to draw my balance and maybe divide by like 0.06 or something? Oh, don't write that down. Don't yell at me for writing something and erasing it. Sorry. Anyway, so if you have a variable on one side and nothing but numbers on the other, all you have to do is plug these numbers in, 1,000 times 0.06 times 2, to get your interest. And our interest in this case is $120. So after 2 years, the bank has paid you $120 because you simply left $1,000 in the account. Okay? Let's do one more example. Let's say you invested $500 and you received $650 after 3 years. This problem now is asking you for the rate. The last problem was asking us for the investment, so this one's asking us for the rate. It's going to be a little bit different. We're going to use the same formula though, I equals P times R times T, and just plug in the information we have in our problem. I invested $500, so 500 is the principal. Okay, so that goes under my P. My R, that's my rate. I don't know what that is, so I'm going to leave that as a variable. My time is 3 years times 3. Now, this is the part where you have to be careful. Sometimes the problem will be written in such a way that you have to take an extra step. What this problem says is you put in $500 and you get $650 after 3 years. That doesn't mean you get that $650 is your interest. You get a total of $650 after 3 years. But that includes your $500 that you put in. So our interest in this case is actually 650 minus the 500 we originally put in, which gives us $150. So our interest here is 150, not 650. Then all I have to do is take this equation, I'm going to move this over. Take this equation that I have, simplify it, and solve it. This time I have numbers and variables mixed up together on my right-hand side, so I'm going to have to be careful. I'm actually going to have to use my balance to solve this. But what I can do first is I can do this 500 times 3, because those are plain old numbers and they're all just multiplying together. So 500 times 3 is 1,500. I'll still have my R, and then this is 150. To solve my equation, I'm going to divide both sides by 1,500, divide by 1,500, and I'm left with R equals 150 divided by 1,500 gives me 0.1. I have to write that as a percent, though, not as a decimal, because rates, remember, are always written as percents. So this time I'm going to take this decimal point and move it to the right to give me my percent. So this investment has a rate of 10%. All right, let's try a reflection. Go ahead and try this. Type it into Edmodo. It's not as hard as it looks. Use the same formula that we did for simple interest. All right, thanks guys. Have a good one.